Hi there, I'm Bevan Thompson and welcome to the Wellbeing Whizz Omnicast. What is an Omnicast? Well, an Omnicast is a video podcast. It's also an audio podcast. It's also a blog on my website. It's many, many things. It's more than just a podcast, basically. And I'm the Wellbeing Whizz. I'm an anxiety coach who helps people manage their anxiety and start to live a better life. Now, what qualifies me for this, you're asking? Well, I used to suffer very badly from anxiety myself around maybe 10 years ago. I had all the symptoms you could think of, the sort of sweaty palms, the dizzy head, the random thoughts, racing thoughts. It turned to depression. It was essentially a living nightmare. And I spent a long time with doctors going through things like hypnotherapy. I tried tablets. I tried a lot of the different solutions. And I found the only thing that helped me was starting to go back to the start, work out how my thoughts worked, work out how they were creating my emotions, how I was creating this anxiety. And what I did, I created a framework and kind of cured myself. That led on to me thinking, hang on a minute, other people should benefit from this, and the Wellbeing Whizz was born. I set up as a coach, helping people manage their anxiety and helping them live a better life, as I say. The Omnicast every week is about sharing tips about this, interviewing other people about their anxiety, me talking about ways to understand anxiety and how to cure it, and essentially just a place where you can learn more about anxiety itself and sort of sharing a lot of people's experience with it. Welcome to the Wellbeing Whizz Omnicast episode 30. 30, I can't believe it. That means we're middle-aged, I guess. Today I've got a great guest. Her name is Charlotte Jones. Hi, Charlotte, how are you?
Hello, thanks for having me.
No, thank you for coming. It's really great. I know we've been in touch for a while. We've never actually met in real life, but it's the first time we've chatted. So chatting live on a podcast, that's exciting.
I'm nerve-wracking.
No, not at all. No, you're safe here, I tell you. So would you like to tell people who are listening and watching what you do and what you're all about?
Yeah. So I'm a therapist, been a therapist for 12 years, working with children and adults. And I've got 2 children, 6 and 9. And yeah, from Manchester, as you can probably tell, a bit like you.
Road, yeah.
And that's about it, really.
So we're so close. I mean, I could literally walk to where you are probably now. I'm just around the
probably
corner.
do it in the garden in the sunshine.
Oh, it's lovely out there today. I've locked myself in a shed to do a podcast, and it's lovely out there. So it's so frustrating. And I've got sessions all day as well, so I can't even go and enjoy it. But I was just saying to someone, it's like weird. You sit there and go, oh, it'd be lovely to be outside. But last week I was going, it'd be lovely to have a full diary. So, I mean, you can't win, can you?
You can't win. You can't win. It's true.
You know what the podcast's about, and you're pretty much an expert on this. It's all about anxiety, managing anxiety, talking about it with people. What does the word anxiety mean to you, Charlotte Jones?
Fear for me. Just that overwhelming fear and letting those thoughts escalate, and that, I don't know. For me, it's hypervigilance, fear, panic.
I always describe it as like that kind of overbearing mum. Don't do that. Don't do this. Don't do that. Be careful.
I am that mum, though. I am that person because of anxiety.
It kind of one drives the other, and it's like, and I think in a way it fuels that a little bit. And I've been trying to like not project my anxiety onto my own children, because as soon as I learned to manage my anxiety, my dad came to visit and I saw where it all came from.
Yes, and it's extremely difficult to do. You know, it's hard to manage your anxiety at the best of times, but then if your children are about to run out in the road or they're being silly at the top of the stairs, which are my sort of go-to worries, then it's like, how do you control that? So yeah,
exactly. How do you not make everyone hyper scared? Because that's what my dad is an international standard catastrophizer. I didn't know until I found out I was one. And then all the things I would say to myself, he came to my house the following weekend. When I had my big eureka moment, he came to my house the following weekend with my mum, and everything he said, I thought, I've been saying that for years. This is where it's come from. I didn't tell him because obviously that would upset him. But yeah, it's like, it's funny where you get, you get your personality from, isn't it? It's like,
yes, so true. My mum and my sister, we're all the same. My eldest child, who's 9, almost 10, I can see the signs in him, and it's just, but then that just makes you feel worse, doesn't it? And leaves you with all that guilt and the parent guilt. You can't win.
You never get out of it. And it's like, but it is that stepping away and going, do you know what? Being kind to yourself. I'm doing my best. I am really trying to keep them safe. I'm not doing it from a place of horribleness, if that's the word. I'm doing it from a place of love, and I'm trying to do, so it's giving yourself that break. And you know what? You probably wouldn't let them arse about on the top of the stairs anyway. So,
Exactly. Yeah. But you know, it gives us that advantage as well, in that we've got that understanding. You know, for example, my husband, probably the complete opposite of anxiety. So he struggles to understand it in my children, but I've got that understanding. I understand their worries, and it's not silly, or, you know, all that type of stuff.
That's funny, because I'm also married to the least anxious person on the planet.
Really?
And it must be, we must be drawn to people who aren't anxious, who like anchor us down, maybe. I've never really considered that. I've mentioned Lisa on the podcast loads, and famously, she's the lady who, when I said, well, I have about 60,000 thoughts a day, and I think anxious people have like 120,000, and she famously said, some days I don't think of anything.
Yeah. I mean, that would just be heaven, wouldn't it? It would just be just such a relief. Yeah.
I mean, and she understands it now, but yeah, when I was deep in it, maybe 14, 15 years ago, and I didn't understand it, so how could she, you know? And it's my big thing to write a book for, and I'm giving away my secret here, for couples coming from the same, or people who live together, you know, mums and daughters, doesn't really matter who it is, significant others of any kind, just to try and be PC, that, you know, to explain it to them in 2 separate sections of a book, but the same way, so that you're learning what I'm learning. If it was us two, for example, you're my sister or whatever, you're learning what I'm learning, and we can speak the same language. You understand where I'm coming from. That's my big thing, because of my personal experience, you see. So,
and I think that's so needed. I think that's probably one of our go-to arguments, with him not understanding my anxiety, which has been quite a long history, a bit like yourself. And then my son, who's mimicking me, and he's like, whoa, you know, it's a big issue, I think, in couples and relationships.
Kind of, what are you worried about? What's the everything?
Stop flapping.
How long have you got? I'll tell you what I'm worried about, and we'll start here. We'll project 13 years in the future. I've got plenty of time. But yeah, so tell me a time when you've particularly suffered from anxiety. Then, is there a particular occasion or period in your life that you've been affected?
Yeah, so I've always suffered with anxiety. I think you either have it or you don't. It's, well, not that you either have it or you don't, but I think people can significantly suffer more than others. And then rewind to 2019 summer, my daughter got diagnosed with life-threatening genetic disorder, and it was the anxiety, just literally that moment went through the roof. Panic attacks, not wanting to eat, the physical symptoms. It was really, really horrific stuff, really. And then as a therapist, I had to take time off work, get medication, and become the opposite of what I do for a day-to-day.
Gee, that must have been, I mean, wow, and I hope your daughter's on the mend. I really do, because that's I can't even imagine how that would have been. And it's that everyone has that little trauma trigger that seems to start it. It's like someone's the rug from underneath your feet, and you've gone, whoa, and all of a sudden everything's a problem, not just that one thing.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I was thinking about this last night before coming on the podcast, and I was thinking, you know, when people have died or stuff like that, or that you're hit by grief or whatever it is, I've never really understood how it would lead to this escalating, unraveling anxiety until it happened. And then when I've come across clients or people that have been bereaved, for example, and that anxiety journey is then now their sort of like go-to mental health concern, it really does manifest itself in anxiety, you know, grief, trauma, things like that. And it's debilitating, isn't it?
It's almost like that kind of realization that the world is a horrible place sometimes. And it's almost like you've been in that childlike kind of innocence, and then something big. It's like with me, it's a lot less than yours. I was working for a company, and I was the director of the company. The other director stole a load of money. I was implicated in it. I hadn't done a damn thing because I'm poor as a church mouse. But it was very obvious to the police I hadn't. But my mind, having been brought up, be scared of the police. Like, you know, I'm scared of a policeman walks past me in the street. That was it. I was going to prison forever. I was like, and that's what triggered me. That kind of fear of having no control over.
But that's everything that you've worked for that could be taken away overnight. So it's like that huge
disappeared.
Consequences, aren't there?
And same with you. It's like that one, everything you hold dear, like your daughter, could be like that. And it's like, it suddenly, everything is a lot more scary than it was before. And it's almost
Yeah.
like you've had this like blindfold, the curtain's been pulled back and here's the actual world. And it's like, because I always was quite a chirpy, happy individual with that little worry, power to
Yeah.
worry. But it's almost like someone watered that power to worry with a big traumatic experience, I guess.
Yes. And then you have to sort of almost rebuild yourself back up again. And it takes a long time, doesn't it?
Oh, and it's understanding how your brain works. That's what I had to do. I had to rewind right back and start learning. And because
Yeah.
otherwise it was just something that was wrong with me. And it was this thing when actually, when you learn that your thoughts create your emotions and anxiety is just an emotion like any other, it's just that it's out of control and getting too big
Yeah.
boots. It was that realization that, because initially, I've said it on here loads of times, I didn't even know what my thoughts were. I just thought they had to be me because they were in my voice. And it was Carl Pilkington who taught me they weren't.
Yes. And it's scary. It's really scary as well when you're in that place. But I think it also gives you hope, doesn't it? So once you've come out of that place, you know that you can do it again. You know that you can get out of it again, whatever happens.
It is. It's like you fought a battle and won, and then the confidence
Yeah.
is there. And it's like if you stave off one panic attack, or you manage to calm yourself down, or you manage to rationalize one thought, all of a sudden it is creating that habit. The subconscious goes, hang on, we can deal with this.
Yes.
Bloody hell. And you don't want any more of this. Wicked, I can not send you that again. That's fine. But it's that getting out of that loop, isn't it? And this is why I spent hours working with people, getting them out of that loop, just thinking. And anyway, sorry, I get carried away with it. I love the topic. So what would you say was the hardest part of anxiety for you? Is it physical, mental, bit of both?
100% physical for me, which often isn't spoken about that much, really. Often, especially as a therapist, we talk about the emotions and the feelings and the thoughts. But for me, it's the physical symptoms, and those physical symptoms escalate the mental symptoms for me.
Yeah.
So it will be things like, so for me, it's that palpitation in the ear, which is just constantly there, or the butterfly feeling in the throat there, and just, they're not major, but
they're there, and
horrific.
then they get magnified by your thoughts, like you say. It's like, ooh, it's here. Yeah. The fear of the fear is sometimes the
fear of the fear. 100%. That was it for me.
It's back again. It is back again, and it's here to ruin my day, and I can feel it. When actually, again, from learning, you realize that's fight or flight response. You realize it's your body just naturally reacting to things.
Yeah.
Once you can rationalize it, you're all good. But when I didn't know what it was, I thought I was dying.
Absolutely. Definitely. I think the physical feelings, I don't know, they just disrupt my day a lot more than the mental ones, I think.
Yeah.
I find them quite difficult.
You're feeling crap and you're feeling dodgy, and I used to feel faint the whole time, and I'm really, really tall. So I used to crawl around because I'm so tall. I think, I've got a long way to fall from. I was obsessed with fainting. I'd never fainted before in my life.
Yes.
I'd seen other people faint. So I had this concept of like, when I do faint, I'll crack my head open, and I was like, think. But yeah, I crawled around the floor because I'm 6'4".
Gosh, it's terrifying though, isn't it? And to other people, it does come across as really irrational, like what we were talking about in our relationships. It feels really irrational. To others, it might look irrational, but to us, it's not really. It's really quite, scary and
very real, very scary, and
very real. Yeah.
And you can't do a thing. Like, it's like, it's funny. It's like we said, the fear of the fear. It's like, I can't go out and do this because this may happen and I might feel this way. All of a sudden you cut off from everything. But then your poor other half's like, should we go and see Auntie Mary down the road? And you're like, no, I don't fancy it. They think you don't like Auntie Mary, when really you're just terrified about going anywhere or doing anything.
Absolutely. And, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and that's the one thing that I'm hearing all the time from clients. We've been stuck inside for so long, trying to reintegrate back into the world. It's terrifying for people, isn't it?
And it's like, what a big, because I didn't like big crowds. I used to feel claustrophobic, worried that I couldn't get out. Things like that. I think it's always that no control over the situation, like on a train. What if there's no toilet? If a bus, what if it doesn't stop where I want it to stop? All these thoughts that then start getting you worried, and being in a crowd of people. What if I can't get out? And all this. People are going to have to go back to that. And being away from it from so long, it's not a habit anymore. Going on a bus, going in a crowded place, it's all brand new.
It's not normal anymore, is it, to do all of those things?
It's like
And
brand new out the box. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. And speaking of that, in terms of going to the toilet, in terms of the children, because I know I've come on to talk a little bit more about the children mental health side, that going to the toilet and that fear of going to the toilet, or fear of having an accident, or a fear of being sick, both physical things, are what I see in children, that struggle with anxiety. That's what they fear often the most.
Because again, when you're toilet training, it's like, right, focus, let's not have an accident, because you have to. But then
Yeah.
you're building up this anxiety of the possibility of having an accident.
Yeah. Fear of vomit and fear of going to the toilet.
Oh, my
Both
daughter's
physical
terrified of being
symptoms.
sick. Absolutely. And I have to keep reminding her that actually you've only ever been sick X number of times when you've been ill. I mean, she gets sick on aeroplanes, but because she's so frightened of being sick on an aeroplane, that it's like, come on, it's a self-fulfilling thing. You create,
Yeah.
and it's hard to tell an 11-year-old that, but we'll get there,
But it makes sense, as a parent who's struggled with anxiety, it makes sense where their thoughts are, doesn't it, and where it all comes from.
Absolutely. And you have to just check you almost have to double check what you say before it comes out your mouth, really, and sort of, you can't, I mean, because in certain, like you say, certain situations, you're at the top of the stairs, be careful, you immediately say that, you just, and it's so hard. But then it's about reassuring the children that, I mean, I'm teaching you how to suck eggs. It's about reassuring them that these situations are nowhere near as scary as you're led to believe. And I'm sure you've got better tips than me.
No, it's the same. It's the same thing, and it's what we have to do as adults, don't we? We have to sort of self-talk our way out of it, don't we? That actually we're fine, we're safe, and it's just our thoughts running away with themselves.
It's that third-party space that I try and get people to take up, that sort of, let's look at it as if it was your next door neighbor, your best friend. If they came to you and said all these things, how would you treat them? You'd treat them with compassion for a start. And secondly, you try and say, well, hang on, you've got evidence to prove the contrary, or oh, I saw you last week and you were all right. All these kind of things you can do for yourself if you step out of the emotion part of it, the feeling part of it, that really is battering you down and making you feel rough. But yeah, I mean, I love this because I like someone who's in the same mental space as me about it all. I love it. I get so excited. It's a shame we've only got a small amount of time, so I'll be on here for a couple of days.
I know. It's my favourite subject, though. It really is.
Oh, I'm a saddo. Get me on it. As you can probably tell from all the podcasts before, I can't help but get so excited about someone who shares a similar view and understands.
Yeah. But I think it's because anxiety is so terrifying. And I think unless you've actually really been in it, it's so difficult to explain.
And that's what you get when you talk to a client and the first meeting, and they come to you and they say, oh, I feel that. And you go, yeah. And you also feel this and this. And they go, oh, you get me. You understand. And it's like you're in this secret club all of a sudden. And they're like, oh my God, someone else feels this way. Someone else has had this experience. And that's the wonderful bit. That's suddenly they trust you 100%, because it's almost like you've been in their virtual reality world and you've seen how they feel because you've experienced it. I think no one else feels the same way as you.
Yeah. And you know what? It makes you a better, coach or therapist or whatever, because you've been there, you've been to that place, that horrible dark place where no one wants to go to, and you've survived it, but you want them to not feel it too. So it just makes you a better person.
There's nowhere better than talking from experience, is there? I mean, all the theory in the world. Yeah, but if you can say, and I did this and then I did that, it's got a lot more weight. It's got a lot more personal stories involved. When I tell them I decided I was going to live in a toilet roll fort in Asda because I got that stressed and anxious in a shop and built a fort out of toilet rolls and was going to live there forever. Yes, it's funny, but not to me at the time, it wasn't.
No.
But to them, it strikes a chord. They go, yeah, sometimes I feel like that, And look at him now. He's sat here telling me he's all right. So yeah, it gives you a bit more weight as well and a bit more power almost to help.
Yeah, because like I said before, anxiety often manifests itself in really irrational ways to other people, but to us, it's very real, isn't it? So
yeah, me in a fort looks mental. How
can you understand that? Yeah.
But at the time, I was like, nope, I'm all good. Peeking out from my Andrex.
My little safe space.
I mean, yeah, that was probably my lowest moment. I'm glad it's quite a funny low.
But you can laugh about it now.
Yeah, and I quite like the idea that it's got a little bit of humour to it. That it was quite dark for me at the time, but looking back now, it's hilarious. Like I thought that was the safest place in the world, made out of toilet rolls. in Asda in Lee. Anyway, so how do you feel like now? Obviously, we all still get anxious because it's an emotion and that's the way it is. But now you can manage it. How do you feel now? What are the sort of main things that you do to manage it?
I'm very in tune with my physical sensations and my body, probably a bit too much. So I do tend to like do self-care and trying to release that adrenaline physically. So whether that's, I don't know, just being outside, fresh air, having a hot bath, that kind of thing, trying to relax and do the breathing. But that positive self-talk. So is there any evidence to back up why I'm feeling like this? No. You know, I've probably got to the stage now where I know it's my anxiety and I just need to switch it off and tell it to shut up, if that makes sense.
I always say it's like the Wizard of Oz. It's like once you've seen behind the curtain, you know full well there's a little fella behind there and not this big scary monster. And it's like,
yes,
you're just rabbiting on in the corner there, Wizard of Oz, not interested in you.
Yeah.
Too little to be important. You're just trying to ruin what
Yes.
I'm doing.
And ignore it and just push it down as much as possible. And I think being aware of your triggers as well. So for me, it might be hospital appointments or when I get a summary letter, which just triggers stuff that I don't want to see, or hormones for me, which we don't often talk about is a trigger. Just being mindful of, am I feeling tired? Have I been eating loads of rubbish foods? Am I dehydrated? Just
that
things like
describes my
that.
whole day. I'm tired, I eat rubbish food and I'm dehydrated. That's me.
But it impacts our mental health, doesn't it? Massively.
Of course it does. And that was one thing I didn't realize. The physical and mental bodies are so closely linked. Burning off that adrenaline, that's so important. Getting outside, getting serotonin up in the sunshine, chilling out with your dog, whatever it be. Like, for me, it's stupid things like video games. Play video games because my hands are busy, my mind's busy. All of a sudden, there's no room for anything else to pop in. And that's the thing I really found. Like, I'd watch a TV program and there was still space for thoughts to creep in. And like
a lot of space.
With a video game, it's like a story and a game, and there's no room because you're physically occupied and mentally occupied. There's no way you can get into my mind when I'm doing it. So, and it sounds stupid, I'm 47 playing video games all the time, but it's great for my health. It really is. It sounds weird. And then going out running.
But it's your coping strategy and it works.
And that's it. And it's all those things. It's allowing it. We use the word allow on this podcast more than any other word. It's allowing yourself to have that space and time and go, do you know what? I'm looking after myself and that's fine. I'm not being lazy. I'm not being like, I don't know, antisocial or whatever. I'm just looking after myself for a bit. You wouldn't leave a plant and not water it.
Yeah, and I think it's good to acknowledge feelings, but I think it's also good to distract them and block them out from time to time, especially when it's anxiety and it's irrational thoughts. Whether it's video game or for me, it's a good book. You can't think about anything else whilst reading a book and doing a video game. Otherwise, you'll lose, won't you? Or you won't follow the story. So
exactly, and it's that kind of like, it's like I teach people to like mentally swipe away unhelpful thoughts, but it's almost like you're locking the door to any thought other than the thought about the thing that you're doing, which is great because it is like, I used to say, I wish the world would stop for 5 minutes. Actually, that's what you're doing. You're making the world stop for 5 minutes by engrossing yourself in a book or a video game or playing ice hockey or whatever it is. Ice hockey, don't know where that came from. But anything that you enjoy doing that takes your mind off it is a brilliant thing to do. And you're right. You're completely right. Okay, to go on to the more sort of cheerful part of the podcast, really. I always like to allow people to give a shout out to a couple of people in their life that have either made them less anxious, made them better at their job, made them a better person. Is there a couple of people you'd like to say thank you very much to on this huge forum?
I've gone for a couple of groups of people. So I've gone for the children that I work with, because I work predominantly with children that have been abused and, significantly impacted by trauma and mental health. And I think, as soon as you see them just smile and really appreciate having that safe space with me and that nurturing, even if I'm not delving into the trauma or fixing things, which, as trauma, it's long-term work. You're not going to be able to fix it in a course of therapy, just to give them the opportunity to have that safe space. That's what motivates me. That's what keeps me going and makes me want to continue it. It's the kids.
That's, you know what, I got choked up then. That's lovely. Yeah, to imagine them just having that free space to,
Yeah.
that's lovely.
Play, talk. Yeah.
That must be really rewarding, actually. I mean, yeah, there'll be sides of the job that are truly horrific. I would imagine that I'd probably struggle to what's the word I'm looking for, to like process. But
Yeah.
those moments where you see them become a child again just in front of you must be lovely.
Yeah. Or, you know, I mean, it's sad, but they're in tears because they can't see you anymore. And, you know, because it's NHS and there's time restrictions and stuff like that. And then it's just like, oh, yeah, I didn't think I was doing anything, but I actually did. And so it's that motivates you, that motivates me.
I can see how that really would. That would be so lovely. Yeah. Oh, crikey. I'm quite jealous that you get those moments. I mean, because I like those moments
Yeah.
where someone says to me, I don't have to be anxious anymore. I've realized it. And you're like, and you just feel lovely. And it's like you've done something useful. But with children, it will be even
Yes.
more so because
Yeah.
you feel free
Because
again.
children shouldn't have to feel like that, should they? And they, you know, when we spoke about before about going to that dark place as an adult, to go to that dark place as a child, it's not on. It's not on,
No,
is it? It's
you
just
shouldn't
not
have to live
right.
in that. No, not at all. Oh, that's nice. That's really stopped me in
Yeah.
my tracks. I'm usually quite jovial and chirpy. That's really like struck a chord with me. That.
Yeah, it was well, there wasn't specific people as such, really. It was people. So it was the children that I work with and my counselling colleagues as well. So they're trauma therapists, and most of them work with adults who've been abused. There's a few of us that work with children that have been abused, and they're just amazing people. You know, we have a very dark humour, vulgar humour to get through what we get through,
Yeah.
and
It's
lots
like
of
trenches
banter.
humor. Yeah, I know what you mean. Gallows humor kind of.
Yeah, but they're just, you know, when you get moments of that imposter syndrome, they get me back on track, or, you know, we're all really supportive. So yeah, my counselling colleagues for me.
Oh, that's not. That's good. I like that. That's a nice. It's nice to know that you've got a job like that as well. That there's a team behind you, especially with what you're having to deal with on a daily basis. That you can lift each other up and support each other. That's the most
Definitely.
important thing. I mean, that's sometimes what's hard about working on my own. Actually, is like, hey, I haven't
Yeah.
got anyone to talk to about it, and can't necessarily do that anyway. But and also, yeah, some days some things really impact you, and you kind of take them home with you. So at least you can pick up the phone and be like, God, you know, someone understands where you're coming from. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can offload and have a pep talk, which you can't really do that to yourself, really, can you?
No, I'm all right. I'm fine. My dog looks after me. She's my co-worker. She looks after me. She'll listen to a lot of things.
The therapy dog.
Absolutely, she's a beauty. So if I like to read a lot, and I think it's really, really important, and you've already mentioned books, but I think, you know, everyone should read either, you know, as often as possible. If there is one book that the watchers and listeners could get hold of that you would suggest, what would it be?
I've picked two.
That's fine. I'll let you have two.
So
You can be greedy. That's absolutely fine.
I've picked one that will help the kids, which I love. These are just my Bibles. Don't Worry, Be Happy, A Child's Guide to Overcoming Anxiety, and You're a Star, A Child's Guide to Self-Esteem. These are workbooks that parents and teachers or anyone can do with your kids. But I love them. I really
Brilliant.
love
I think you've
them.
got little monsters like my kind of little monsters. I like those. They're cool.
Yeah. £3 each in the works, these were, but them I love them. And then books, I'm a big science nerd. So I've gone for Life Lessons of a Brain Surgeon.
Life lessons of a brain surgeon. Oh, so what is that? Just about his or her work as a brain surgeon and what they've learned? Or...
Yep, and what we can do to preserve our brains.
Oh, that's
I
my
do love science.
next week then. I tell you what,
Yeah.
my reading list gets bigger and bigger every week because everyone brings a book, and I'm like, wow. I mean, we've had a few doubles. Eckhart Tolle pops back in every now and again, but that one sounds brilliant. Oh, I'm up for that. Absolutely.
I like true stories. I like to read about real people and real things. Not all the time, but most of the time.
That sounds great. Life Lessons for a Brain Surgeon. And who's it by? Sorry.
This one's Dr. Rahul Jandil.
It's easy for you to say. I'll write that in the notes underneath because I can't.
Yeah.
Jandil. But that sounds like Life Lessons for a Brain Surgeon. Brilliant. So, along with that, I think that routine and things like that really help with anxiety and mental health in general. Is this something that you do every day that you would suggest everyone else should do, or that you think would help people's mental health in general?
I've gone for gratitude because Do you know what? It sounds really cheesy, doesn't it? You know, telling people to think positive and be grateful for what you've got and all of that stuff. But for me, when I've been to that bad place, I find it really grounding to know that, you know, I've got 2 children, I've got a husband, I've got a job, and I've got a car, and, you know, there's people that haven't got anything. And, you know, it helps me to think about people in worse off situations and be grateful for what I've got. It grounds me.
Absolutely, and
So I
it's
think,
reinforcing evidence of success, and reinforcing evidence in your mind of, it's taking those thoughts to court almost that you're having and saying, well, no, actually, look, here's a load of evidence to prove that I'm not rubbish, or I'm not an imposter, or I'm not this, I'm not that. You know.
yeah, you know, for those in a pandemic now who are fortunate enough to work, okay, you're in a pandemic, but you can still work, you're still healthy, you're still safe, you know, hopefully, you know, just being mindful of those things rather than just the fact that it's really negative and doom and gloom out there. Just trying to look at more
And it's not
positive
cheesy at
ways
all.
of
It's not
being.
cheesy at all. It's a really, really good thing to do. Take stock of what is good in your life and
Yeah,
appreciate it and enjoy it. Live in the now is a
yeah,
thing for us warriors.
yeah. I find it really works. It can be really helpful.
And it means you're playing the game in front of you, not the one in 3 months' time format. You're actually just looking at where you are and going, look at all these great things. And that's bound to make you feel
Yeah,
good. Like, you know.
staying in the moment, being in the here and now a little bit more.
Absolutely. Righto, here's the fun bits. These are the questions I really enjoy now. Um, what's your favourite word and your least favourite word?
I picked 2 favourite words.
I tell you what, you do like 2 or 3 things. That's great.
I'm sorry, I picked 2. I picked discombobulate just because it's just funny. It's just great. And I picked Friday because if you work Monday to Friday, how can Friday not make you happy?
Friday's a great word, yeah. Discombobulate, I do like that. It's a bit like my onomatopoeia. It just sounds
It
lovely
is.
coming out your mind, coming out your mouth. It's like, oh, discombobulate. God, and what word do you really hate?
I put decision because I can never spell it. I can never spell it.
Like making them, but no, because you can never spell it. You see, yeah. And also decision, the word itself conjures up like, oh,
Yeah, making decisions. Other people not making decisions. My husband's terrible at making decisions. I can never spell the word. Yeah, I'll go with that one.
No, I'm glad we haven't had moist again, because that's 3 times. Moist's been a really popular one, but decisions. A, it's difficult to spell, and B, the connotation of having to make one, is
a
very finite kind of thing. Oh no, yes or no, this or that. Oh no, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't listen to Radio 1, but apparently there's a great thing with a guy called Greg James, who does Unpopular Opinion. I saw it once on YouTube and really enjoyed it and stole the concept. My unpopular opinions are that I think the music of Bryan Adams should be deleted. The Life of Pi was a terrible movie, and I can't stand the singing in Disney films. What's your unpopular opinion?
I hate tea and coffee.
What?
I never drank coffee or tea.
On that bombshell. Really?
No. How can you be English and not drink a cup of tea? But no, I don't like the taste of coffee and tea.
Oh my word. Like, I'm an absolute coffee monster. Like, I can't move in the morning without a cup of coffee. The Nespresso machine has to be on. Wow. You're no. So what, do you drink water instead, or soft drinks, or lemon tea?
I drink Tenzing, which is a bit like I drink a lot of energy drinks. Sadly, because I'm not superhuman and not tired. It's just that I hate the taste of coffee.
Oh wow. That's rocked my
world.
It's
an unhealthy habit.
That's absolutely shocked me. That I can't make it to my core. It's even worse than my opinion on Bryan Adams. Can't believe it. Cool. I'm obsessed with time travel, actually, a little bit overly obsessed with time travel. And so if you could borrow my time machine, which I do have, and you could travel back to meet 20-year-old Charlotte, what would you tell her?
I would encourage her not to think too much about what people think. You know, I think as a young person, young people, we think that everyone's going to have this worst case scenario about us or judge us or this or that. I would just try and encourage Charlotte then to just be more, to be able to trust her own judgments a little bit more and just be yourself and try and chill out a bit more.
That's definitely what I would say to myself. Yeah, you spend your time, especially as a teenager, actually. I think you find because it's inbuilt in us that we want to belong to the tribe and we want to be safe in the tribe and everyone to like us. I spent years trying to make everyone like me, and then realized that actually I'm allowed to dislike some people, but no one's allowed to dislike me at all. Which is like
And it's hard, you know, and we experience that all the time. But I just think, actually, for young people, they're probably thinking other people are probably not really thinking half of what they're thinking, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're right. It's like, I always tell people, like, you're the star of your movie, but they're the star of theirs. They're not watching your movie all the time going, I wonder what they're up to next. You know,
exactly.
Sometimes don't give a monkeys what you're up to, which is, and people hate to hear that. It's like, you know what? Some people don't even care what you're doing.
Yeah.
The ego wants to be important and wants to be special. And yeah, it's like, you know what, Jill, just people, if people like you, they like you. And if they don't like it, you know, you can't change their mind. Some people just have a irrational hatred of people for no reason. But don't try and make the whole world love you, because it's not possible.
So it's like trying to turn that dial down a little bit.
Yeah, don't be so sensitive to everything. Yeah. And I always say I'd go back to myself and say, you are not your thoughts, because I wouldn't have to wait till I was 36 to realize that.
Gosh, wouldn't that be good?
Yes, that would be rather tasty and lovely. Okay, I've got 3 questions left. I'm going to switch them around because I usually ask one question, but I'm going to ask the Christy Mims Memorial question, as it's become known now. We had Christy on maybe 4 or 5 podcasts ago now, and she asked the guest chain question, and it stayed in because I loved it so much. It tells me so much about the people that are on. Her question was, what's the best 80s movie? And I always think it tells you a lot about a person. Which 80s movie is the best?
Well, I said this to you, didn't I? That I was only born in 85. But...
Which I was shocked, disgusted how young you are. 70s baby me.
So I was looking through 80s movies, and this one, hands down, was a clear winner. E.T.
Exactly. It's been mentioned.
E.T.
And why is that?
It's just a classic feel-good kids family movie. It comes back around. I love it when you can watch things with your kids that you've watched, and it's just a good movie, isn't it? And he's so cute. He's just so cute.
I remember going to see it at the cinema. I must have been, well, it came out, I don't know when it came out, actually. I wasn't very old. I was born in 74, so it probably came out in like 84 or something. Maybe I was 10 or something. And I remember I'd never cried at a film before. And that bit where, I mean, spoiler alert, but it is about 40 years old, so I'll probably let go. That bit where you think he's died and the little flower dies and all that. Honestly, I was in floods of tears. I was like, oh my God. And I know it wasn't real, but like that emotion that boy feels, and it's just awful. And I remember being in the cinema, like trying not to show my mom or my dad or any of my friends that I was crying. Like, yeah, it's a pretty traumatic experience, remembering that, actually. I remember showing George.
What would you pick?
At the same age, and he cried too, because it has that power when the little flower just goes, and you're like, oh no! Like,
I know, it's just such a good film.
By the government and all that, and it's like, wow, yeah, it's a great movie. That it really is, and a lot of people have mentioned it as being.
Oh, have they?
One of the best. It's just has such a good, like you say, feel good. It has all the elements of a perfect film, really, and a fab little fellow with a big head and a long neck who waddles about. I mean, what more do you want?
You can't beat a family feel-good movie, can you?
I mean, it's like Back to the Future. All that, they've all been mentioned. All those kind of 80s kind of. But then some people have gone at it from a different angle. My friend David, who was on, who's a big film buff, is like, well, Breakfast Club's got all those 80s actors in it, and that's what. So yeah, I always think it opens up a brilliant conversation, and that's why I kept the question in. So, last 2 questions. Is there one question I've not asked you that you would like me to ask, or would have liked me to ask?
I'm a big foodie, so I've gone for, what would your go-to comfort food be when you're feeling a bit rubbish or anxious or...
Hang on a moment then. So then, Charlotte, I've had a great idea for a question. What would your go-to comfort food be if you were feeling a bit anxious, distressed, etc., etc.?
I would stuff my face in Chinese or nachos, jellos, Mexican, something really cheesy and indulgent. Big donut afterwards.
Carbs is the answer to that question, essentially, then. Because
yes,
I always think nothing is that bad. It can't be sold by a cheese toastie. It's one
cheesy, extra cheese.
It's just one of the things that, like, cheese just makes everything better.
Yeah.
That should be the cheese
And
marketing board slogan.
yeah, I mean, cheese is the best thing about winter, isn't it? You know, cheese and red wine,
Red wine is always the
camembert.
go-to. Absolute crikey, a lady after my own heart indeed. That's like, yeah, red wine's the answer. Cheese toasties and red wine, and I'm happy. I'm done.
Yes, exactly. So
Not
go-to
together. I don't know if
comfort
I've ever had them
foods.
together, but two stable food groups. Okay, so as you know, the last guest asks you a question, and you get to ask the next guest a question. The last time was Jodie Estero, and she asked the amazing question: if you had no fear, what would you do?
Fear is everywhere with me. I think that is my go-to anxiety sort of trigger, fear. So I think if I had no fear to live my life just free, I'd just feel free. I'd just be able to do everything and enjoy it without that horrible word or that horrible,
Yeah, I know
I
what you
don't
mean.
know,
That
intrusive thought.
voice, like little devil on your shoulder,
Yeah,
and don't do that, it's dangerous. But you could just like, yeah, you'd be free. That is the right word. Freedom.
yeah. Having just not being hyper. I'm a very hyper vigilant parent and person. So I think just to be able to just woo,
You're like,
which is probably what I'm like after a glass of wine, but like that all the time.
so staying drunk all the time is probably not an option.
I know. But that sort of like that fizzy free
Yeah, that
feeling.
kind of inhibition, not inhibitions is the wrong word, isn't it? That kind of, like you say, one drink kind of takes the edge off of that.
Yes.
Not the kind of like, 4 bottles of wine in, the more kind of, yeah, that
like the
kind of
first drink.
Yeah, you kind of, hey, I feel great now. I feel like
Yeah.
the air, it's slightly kind of relaxed, and yeah, I know what you mean. That taking the edge off the fear. Yeah, we will do that. We will take that trip. We will do this. We will do that.
Yeah. And just do daft stuff and just be a little bit more carefree, really.
Oh, if only we're all just that little bit more carefree. I think that's the thing. I don't think we're designed to live how we live at the minute. I don't think we are, and it's becoming, it's weighing very heavy on a lot of people, and that carefreeness is missing. And I think if we all lived in caves still, and we all did, it'd only be real things to be frightened of. Now we're frightened of imaginary things all the time.
Yeah, and it's getting worse. It's getting worse and worse. And this is why the beauty of this podcast is amazing, so people can hear real situations and scenarios about how hard it is right now.
The news going, it's all bad. Stay indoors.
Yeah.
It's like, don't get me started on the media. Right? I'd be like, 24-hour news is probably the worst invention for people with anxiety, because they have to fill an hour, and they fill an hour with scary visuals. There's not very many good news stories on Sky News 24, for example. Not like, hey, a man dug his garden today and found some treasure, and another guy planted a tree and it grew nice. None of that. I'd quite like to make a happy news channel.
Yeah, well, there's a happy newspaper.
Is there?
Out. Yes, in Clouds in Walkden, they sell the happy news, and we should all watch Newsround instead, shouldn't we? Because the kids get to watch Newsround in school.
They do, and
that's all about stories like that.
Yeah, there's always a happy story. And finally, John Craven used to say, and finally, that's disappeared. Yes. Well, the old and finally is a water skiing otter, or like, whatever, something fun was at the end of the newsroom. When I was a kid, it was always like, and finally, here's a fun thing to stop you going to bed at night terrified.
Yeah. There is definitely a newspaper called The Happy News, and it's by somebody called Emily Coxhead. And you can actually buy a newspaper and just read positive news stories. Yeah.
Sorry, Emily.
That's the name.
Sorry, Emily. We're having a pop. But yes. So that's good. Happy News. I'll have to give that a go. My kids probably like that. I didn't even know that existed. So yeah. Oh, I'll get hold of that. And lastly, have you got a question for my next lovely guest? A brain teaser, a tricky question? Just something stupid. That's fine too.
I was going to go for, do you talk about your anxiety or mental health with like in day-to-day life, or is it this big secret?
Ooh,
because I think for lots of people it can be quite a big secret, can't it? For me, mine's definitely a secret, and I'm a therapist. So
this is what I'm thinking. Like, if you're in a position of a certain expectation, if you like, that's a very common sentence, but if you get me, it's like, would you want to admit to the world that you're struggling if you're supposed to be the person who's mending people? Difficult. And also, like,
Yeah.
I had a thought of creating a Facebook group about anxiety. And actually, a friend of mine said, you know what, do you think people will actually join it? Because if you think people are joining a group and it says on their Facebook, Bevan has joined a group full of anxious people, do you want your boss to see that? Do you want your friends to see that? Do you want prospective employers to see that? Probably not. So it's that stigma we've got to get rid of.
Yeah, and it's not right, is it? And I get parents talking to me about their anxious children, and none of us are talking about our anxious children either with each other. It's always about how good they are and what amazing things they do. And, why shouldn't we be talking about it with each other a lot more? And I guess I'm interested to hear whether other people do keep it a secret or whether they are talking about it a little bit more.
That's got a chance of sneaking in as the Charlotte Jones Memorial question, That's such a good question, because that's one I'm not asking people. How many people do you tell about it? Do you tell people about it? How do you tell people about it? And
yeah.
Well, I love that. That's definitely come from a therapist, that.
Yeah. And also medication, I take low-level anxiety medication. Why should that have to be a secret? But it's a massive secret for me, and I certainly wouldn't want everyone to know.
I'll cut that bit out.
I know, but it is like, why are we keeping such things a secret when we don't?
If you were taking pain pills for your back, for example, you'd be like, oh yeah, I've just got to take the pain pills for my back. The back hurts. Wouldn't be a problem. Yeah. And it's exactly the same thing. It's levels of serotonin, it's levels of this, levels of that you're just trying to correct. It's a chemical imbalance quite a lot of the time, or a crutch to give you more of a certain chemical so you feel better. It doesn't, if you're taking more aspirin because you've got a bad back, it doesn't matter. It's the same concept. It's just that there's this taboo almost about it.
There's that huge stigma, and it's still there. It's we talk about mental health and we have mental health awareness days and stuff like that, but it is definitely still there.
It's still like, those people with mental health. It's like, oh, come on now. Yeah. And this is why I try and encourage people to understand that anxiety is an emotion, not a thing. Because if you realize that everyone has an emotion like anxiety, it's like joy, it's like happiness, it's like anything, it becomes less of a stigma, less of a thing. Everyone experiences a level of anxiety. It's just some people are at 99% all the time, and that extra 1% will tip them over the edge. Whereas my wife, for example, people like your husband who are calm all the time, they're at 1% all the time, and that extra bit doesn't tip them anywhere near the edge. And it's getting that out there, that it's just an emotion like all the rest of them, and it's not this black, scary creature living on your shoulder all the time. Which I hope we're doing, I really do. But honestly, I really want to say thank you so much for coming on. You've been such a fab guest. I really wish we could have gone on for days and days and days and made a test match out of it with lunch and tea and dinner and all, just chatted throughout the whole thing. Because I think you've got so much to offer, especially to parents, to children. Where can people find you to find out more about what you do? That's a really important question.
So my social media is Counsellor Worsley. I used to live in Worsley, so the name's just stuck, Counsellor Worsley. And then I go off on counselling pages, Charlotte Jones. Boring.
I don't know. It's it. People know who you are, but no, honestly, look Charlotte up. She posts a lot of really good stuff. And like you say, if you're concerned about how your children are thinking, look her stuff up and get a copy of the happy news for everybody, I would say. I'm looking forward to reading that. But no, honestly, I really genuinely appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Cheers. Take care. Bye. Bye.